Hello everyone, welcome to another round of Tuesday Night Legacy where we showcase Magic's most powerful formats. My name is Eugene and I'll be your commentator for this, the final round from April 12th. We have James playing a Jeskai control deck. This deck is basically trying to control the first half of the game with all sorts of denial spells like Sword Plowshares, Prismatic Ending, Force of Negation, Force of Will, things of that nature to kind of get the other player off of their plan, whereas, using opportunities to play super strong cards to advance their position, like Teferi Time Raveler and the brutal backbreaking play of Narset plus Hull Breacher and Days Undoing. And, they eventually close out the game once your spirit is broken with something like the Wandering Emperor, or just, beats with a Snapcaster Mage. Whereas on the other side of the table, we have Maxwell coming back from round 2, and he's on his Delver plan. Delver, of course, having basically just 14 beater win conditions, Brazen Borrower, Dragon's Rage Channeler, Delver, and Murktide, and everything else in the deck is either trying to protect it via Force of Will or trying to engine itself into one of those cards with things like Ponder, Expressive Iteration, or just simply replacement effects like Mishra's Bauble. One last thing I want to mention before we get started here. This is actually game 2. For some reason, we didn't get game 1, so these decks do have sideboards in them. We have James starting on the play here with a Ponder. Of course, blue decks always wanting to have the best card selection. There is no exception for a control deck, especially when your opponent hasn't done anything yet. We see Maxwell kind of shortcutting a little bit here. He knew that he wanted to go and get that Volcanic Island, so instead of wasting time, sacrifices his Tarn early, but waits to drop the Dragon's Rage Channeler until it's actually his turn. DRC generating a lot of advantage with that Surveil trigger. See a second DRC coming down. Now whenever a non-creature spell is cast, going to get 2 Surveil triggers. Can basically start to bin his library to grow these guys to the 3/3s. Don't see anything happening on James's side. Kind of just letting all these go off. See that Lightning Bolt? 2 Surveil triggers. Bins Delver Secrets and a Wasteland. This is going to end up growing the Delirium count to 3. Just looking for a sorcery or an artifact now. Taken 2. Not too bad yet. 2 mana for an March of Otherworldly Light. A fairly new card printed in the new Kamigawa set. You can get rid of a lot of different permanent types. Can't hit Planeswalkers, but you can spend cards out of your hand to increase that X value. I think James has been a Modern player for a while and decided to try it out. See the strength of this card, and people are starting to see that it's a pretty strong card. At least definitely in Modern. We'll see if it sticks around for Legacy. Maxwell still not at Delirium yet. Has not cast a sorcery. Looking for a Ponder. Has a Brainstorm. Looks like he has an Expressive Iteration in hand too, so maybe he doesn't want to open himself up to the potential. Yeah, still just hitting in for 1. A 3rd Dragon's Rage Channeler for the turn, for the game. See just an island come down here. Double fetch on James's side. Not sure if this is at end step. 4 mana for, a flashed in March, or flashed in Wandering Emperor. This is a pretty strong card. So this can actually come down, either make a creature or it can exile. Oh, we did see that artifact go into the yard at some point. I missed if he played that bauble or if he surveilled that bauble. Trying to get rid of, so this Emperor is going to actually tick down, exiling the tapped creature, and you gaining 2 life. On the next turn, he doesn't have a way to protect it right now unless he wants to tick down to make that 2/2. Pretty difficult situation since the DRC has flying at this time. See Narset come down. This is going to stop the cantripping on Maxwell's side. Brainstorm becomes an absolutely terrible card. Pay 1, put 2 cards in your hand on top of your library. Probably wants to do anything he can to protect Narset at this point. Though he did tick down to try and find another non-creature spell. So we're going to see Dragon's Rage come in, get rid of that Narset. Yep, much higher potent target. Although Expressive Iteration doesn't technically say draw cards. So EI would have worked without Narset, or with Narset being in play. We see the 4th Dragon's Rage Channeler coming down here. Yep. Just a play set of these fellas. Probably going to knock it out. Ooh, Supreme Verdict. Destroying all creatures in play cannot be countered. Getting rid of all 4, well, the other 2 DRCs that were in play. Activating the Wandering Emperor -1 to create a 2/2 with Vigilance. One of the few win conditions that the control deck has. Trying to stabilize and then just get in there with the beats. On the other side of the table, we see another threat deployed, the Murktide Regent. Getting rid of 3 instants and sorceries with that 5 Delve. So it's a 6/6 flyer. Going to James's turn. Max looks like he has a Force of Negation in hand. So at least one thing to protect. Whatever this spell is going to be. Shorikai, the Genesis Engine, is going to be, I think, a pseudo Jace the Mind Sculptor here. Trying to draw extra cards and crew for an 8/8. But it looks like that was not going to happen. 2 Force of Negations is going to stop those plays. Keeping the Murktide Regent in play. Although Shorikai wasn't actually going to deal with the Murktide at that moment. So kind of an aggressive block of strategy here. I see where Maxwell's coming from, though, because Shorikai would generate that that advantage over time. So might as well deal with the threat now before it creates something that's worse. Keep your 6/6 in play. Teferi Time Raveler, here he is. So this is going to bounce the Murktide Regent, which is going to definitely set Maxwell back, getting to draw an extra card, seeing that Ponder. And Maxwell is at sorcery speed now, so counterspells no longer matter. They just don't have text. Maxwell trying to decide what to exile here. I like that he's got all of his graveyard kind of split into different Delirium piles, although all of the DRCs have been dealt with. Murktide just coming down as a 4/4 can still kill Teferi Time Raveler. We're going to see a Timeless Dragon here for James, plane cycling it, being able to get an extra planes in his hand, then paying 4 to make it eternalize. So he's got the 4/4 flying Black Zombie Dragon now to deal with that Murktide. Although we see a second Murktide come down. This, of course, working with the first Murktide. Whenever any instant or sorcery is exiled, it grows. With that being a static ability, the first one grows to a 5/5. Just beating out that 4/4 token. So James loses the Teferi here. Trying to brainstorm, see what he can do to deal with all these threats. Just another Delver Secrets coming down on Maxwell's side. Really in the tank about this brainstorm. Gonna Swords the large Murktide Regent. So now we can trade with the little one. Although that Delver flipping into a 3/2 is eventually going to be a problem here. Revealing a Pyroblast for the Delver. Trading off Murktide for token. Passing it back and attacking for 3. James just barely staying in this game. Dealing with all of the threat-dense problems that Delver comes with. Pyroblast being a very good card to deal with problematic permanents or being able to fight over something, but not actually generating a ton of value for Max to pull ahead here in this top deck war. We don't know what the top or the last card in his hand is, but if it was a cantrip of some sort, then I think he would have already deployed it. Oh, we see the Mystic Sanctuary getting used here. Can't find it. Mystic Sanctuary is a card when you have 4 islands, you can put an instant back on top of the deck. And so he chose the Swords of Plowshares there to deal with the Delver of Secrets. So James kind of in control here again. Maxwell really in the tank about this Brainstorm on his side. I think we see another Brainstorm in his hand. Using that Brainstorm Scalding Tarn to reset the top of the deck. Going and getting the second Steam Vent. So 6 copies of Volcanic Island in this deck. Either that or maybe he doesn't have a full suite of the Volcanic Islands. Not entirely certain. Looks like he found that Delver. And second main phase, going to put in that Teferi, bounce and draw a card. Real control of the deck. Looks like he's got a Daze and that Pyroblast still, so can dispatch the Teferi if he really wants to by firing off this Pyroblast. Yep, going to get it out of there. Too important not to. Another cycled Timeless Dragon. This is really great for this situation here. Not only does he get to pull another land out of the deck, but he gets that 4/4, since he can Plane Cycle at instant speed, setting himself up for his next turn to Eternalize. Sometimes a 4/4 Zombie Dragon is all you need. And this Samurai has been doing some serious work. The 3/3 Vigilance. Maxwell sees the writing on the wall. We go to game 2. Game 3, actually. So it's 1-1. Maxwell couldn't quite get past all of that control. I think the Supreme Verdict really did some work there way early in the game. And then it was just a back and forth. Couldn't quite get ahead of that control. We see Delver Secrets come down. Getting in there. Of course, these early turns, not as much of a concern for the control deck. Now that we know that Supreme Verdict is a card, you know, James is more likely to let Maxwell kind of build a board presence as long as it doesn't kill him, so that he can deploy that Supreme Verdict for maximum value, especially since it cannot be countered. But 2 mana open. All sorts of different things that James could be doing with his mana here. A lot of basics. Pretty wasteland proof. Which doesn't feel great for the Delver deck that does run a suite of wasteland. Don't mind taking 2 damage or 1 damage here. So Plane Cycling for that Timeless Dragon. Can't quite Eternalize it yet, but it is a potent threat that gets to sit in the graveyard until necessary to deploy. Ooh, we see a Rest in Peace. That's interesting. The Rest in Peace is going to catch a Force of Negation, hard cast. And that is going to go to exile. Might catch that later. I'm not sure what the Daze was for. Maybe discarding. I think the Daze was off of the Surveil trigger. We see Teferi coming back out here. Bouncing DRC to hand. And just passing turn with the draw. The one of Sacred Foundry. Probably need access to red mana a little bit more than he'd like, and being able to find that off of a white fetch is of vital importance. Being able to draw any fetch and be able to get any color mana, always important. DRC coming back down with a Ponder Surveil trigger, binning the Murktide Regent. I'm seeing creature, instant, sorcery, and land. So Dragon's Rage Channeler. Yeah, creature, land, sorcery. So this was a missed attack here. Missed attack trigger when Dragon's Rage Channeler has Delirium. It must attack if able. So not sure what we missed there. The Shorikai coming down unanswered on James's side. Looks like it created a token. When you tap, you get to create that 1/1. It gets to crew for 3. This does have a crew 8, which is kind of insane. But basically, if you tap the ability twice and have like a 2/2, like a Snapcaster Mage in play, it doesn't take long to turn into an 8/8. We see a Murktide coming down for Maxwell, exiling all sorts of different cards out of his grave. Missed that Swords to Plowshares for the DRC, my apologies. Dealing with the 7/7. Teferi not quite there to deal with the 7/7 yet, so hopefully something out of the hand. Nope, pass it right back. Oh, we see the Wandering Emperor coming in, doing her work. And that's going to be the end. It's a scoop. And there you have it. Jeskai Control picking up the win against Blue-Red Delver. The Wandering Emperor doing a ton of work that game. If you want to know either of these deck lists, they're going to be in the description for this video below. And if you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It really helps us out. Big thank you to, of course, Spellhold Games for allowing us to record all of this stuff in this space. And please stick with us because we are going to get into next week's videos. The first round being Delverless Delver versus Blue-Red Delver. See you then.